Welcome, guys. Thank you to That's So Controversial. This is a place where we discuss controversial and not so controversial topics. The idea is to create a community where people from opposing viewpoints can get together and talk. Like I always say, you don't have to agree with someone, but the idea is to actually, get the conversation going. And today's topic is obviously we're going to be discussing pro-life and pro-choice. This is not a debate. This is a discussion. We're talking about it. We want to hear from different people's point of view. And today, I have four people with me, and they are going to be giving us some of their ideas and some of the reasons that they decide to choose pro-choice or pro-life. To So the first person I have with me, his name is Dom. Dom, thank you for joining the discussion today. Um, if
Yeah,
you could, if you could give us a little background on yourself and answer the first question, which is why are you pro-life or pro-choice?
sure. So, a little bit of background. I am a 22-year-old pro-life libertarian. I didn't really get into politics too much until about 2 years ago. I considered myself a Democrat, and I was raised in a very Republican and pro-life family. So, it was a little odd at first, but I started doing my own independent research and found sources that I thought were reliable, that I still do, and it ended up just completely changing my view. And I went to Republican, and then about 3 or 4 months ago, I made the decision to switch to Libertarian. And I'm trying to just kind of do what you're doing and dip my feet into it a little bit with politics and stuff like this.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Lewis.
Hello, thank you for having me. Um, my name is Louis. I am not from the US. I am 20 years old. I am uh, a med student. I'm in my third year, and I am pro-choice. Mainly because after everything I've read, everything I've seen, everything I've experienced, I don't think there is any compelling or good reason to deny a woman the choice of the cause of the pregnancy. So that would be my reason.
No problem. Thank you so much. Show.
Hi, I'm Sho. I'm 23. Um, I'm from the US. I am not really pro-choice or life personally. I'd rather um, just leave it to each individual person, but I would not be okay with aborting myself. But I understand where people are coming from, and it's, in my opinion, that it's their choice. So I guess technically I could be pro-choice, but
Okay.
personally I'm pro-life.
All right. Thank you so much. And Katie.
Hi there. I'm Katie. I am 28. I am from the US. I live in northern Illinois. And I am a single mother of a 4-year-old. And I am against abortion.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much. All right. So that was the first question. I really appreciate your answers. And for those of you who are watching, feel free to get involved in the comments section. If you have any questions, we'll try to get to your questions as much as we can. But all right. So the second question I'm going to pose to you guys is, when do you believe life begins? And I'm going to start off with Katie on this one.
When do I believe life begins?
Correct.
So I believe that biologically, life begins when the fertilization of the egg or conception. When this happens with the fusion of the sperm and the egg, a zygote is produced. There was a survey conducted by Stephen Andrew Jacobs of the University of Chicago, and 120 to 5,502 to say affirmed that biology or human life begins at fertilization. So that's 95% of this over 5,000 biologists that were surveyed agree that an individual human life begins at conception. So for me,
Okay.
if it's morally acceptable to end up, a life via abortion is another debate, but scientifically, a life begins at conception.
All right. Thank you so much, Katie. Appreciate that. And show.
I agree with Katie. think that life is established as soon as the sperm and egg come together, and yeah.
Okay, that's great. Lewis.
Okay. Okay. Hello. So I have a kind of weird stance on this because I don't think life begins at all. I think it only began once, and then it just continues. So because nothing really stops living, even at conception. It's just the sperm is generated from the germinal stem cell and all that stuff, and then it and the egg just comes together. The egg is fertilized, and then a you can say a new individual arises, but it's really the joining of two parts. But if we want to talk about an individual, when
Mhm.
an individual is made or began, probably around conception too.
Okay, that's interesting. That's actually an interesting answer from a pro-choice person's perspective. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Dom.
Well, I'm gonna have to agree that it starts at conception. I mean, scientifically wise, I would say that from the moment that the sperm and the egg connect, there is individual DNA created at that moment, separate from the mother's DNA. And from that moment, a body starts to form that is separate. So, in my opinion, that's a new life. That's a separate life. And I'm also pretty religious, so I believe that the Bible has made it pretty clear that God has had a plan for all of us before we were even conceived. So, from a science point and from a religion point, I'm gonna have to say conception.
All right, thank you guys so much. I found that really interesting that everyone agrees that life begins at conception because Lewis has allowed me to be a part of his abortion debate group, and a lot of the pro-choice people have a really different idea of when life starts. Some people don't even believe it to be a life until it's actually born. So um, I was actually taken aback by the fact that Lewis agreed also. So thank you for that, guys. If you guys who are watching, if you guys feel differently, feel free to comment on the chat section, and we could talk about that a little later. So for the next question I have here is, do you think that science is a valuable tool in discussing this conversation, or is it up for interpretation? You can start with Dom.
I think science is the biggest tool for this, actually. Even though I said I'm very religious and have a very big religious stand on this, I actually really truly turned pro-life because of science. Science is what really drove me to become pro-life. Uh, once it's really hard to find sources, but once I did, science was absolutely the biggest thing for me. And in my opinion, I don't think science is up for interpretation.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Dom. Lewis.
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily valuable. I mean, it helps, but generally speaking, the debate about abortion is more of a philosophical debate, a philosophical discussion, because um, it's not really useful to know in general terms whether an embryo or a fetus is alive at a certain point, at what point does it feel pain, because it doesn't tell you much about people that discussions that people often bring out, like human rights, mother's rights, bodily autonomy, and all that stuff. All those are topics that are independent of science. Science doesn't get into all of that because it's philosophical. It's metaphysical. It doesn't involve natural sciences. It's quite the opposite.
All right, so just to be clear, you said that science is not a valuable tool in what respect? Which part are you saying is philosophical? The fact that they feel pain or
Yeah,
whatever? What was
yeah. So generally speaking, this is more, as I view it, a philosophical discussion, and
okay.
science doesn't deal with the philosophical, only with the natural, and the natural isn't doesn't really matter in this kind of discussions, I believe.
All right, no problem. Thank you so much. Show?
I think it's up for interpretation on whether it's really up to science or not, because science does play a huge role in the sense that people believe as soon as the baby is conceived that it's no longer your choice. But in the sense of people's beliefs and how they feel in the situation, I feel like that plays more of a role in your decision than science.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your answer. Katie?
Yes, I think science is absolutely a valuable tool in the abortion debate. Again, biologically, an individual human life does begin at conception. It's an objective statement to say a life begins at conception. The argument for abortion is based in emotion. And I do believe that human life begins again when, human life has value at the beginning. Biologically, I don't think there's a logical argument to dissuade from the fact that a new life begins at conception. So yes, I think science is very valuable.
All right, thank you guys for your answers. Appreciate it. All right, so Katie, we'll start with you with the next question. Do you believe that abortion is a morality, political, or religious issue, or is it something else?
I certainly think that there are those people that are influenced by religious beliefs, or they're going to use their political position to influence others on their views with abortion. But overall, I find abortion is a moral issue. I know atheists who are against abortion. I know Christians who support it. I know conservatives and liberals who are very strong in their political stance who are against abortion. I know, I just seem to come across the narrative that those against abortion are primarily older white males. And this really can't be farther from the truth. At heart, abortion is a human rights issue.
Okay, thank you. Show.
I believe that it's more of a moral and religious issue, because I know a lot of people say that abortion is against their religion, and that's why they are so against it. But then there are people who think it's more of a moral issue and feel bad about themselves and the thought of killing a human. So I think it's really just between moral and religious. Political, I feel, doesn't really play a huge role in life or death, really. So
All right, thank you for your answer. Appreciate it. Lewis.
Yes, thank you. So, I believe it's purely moral, purely a morality issue. Because it's all about, for a certain side, for example, for the pro-choice side, generally, like, are you allowed to tell a woman what to do with the body? Are you allowed to give restrictions to the choices? From the pro-life side, if I'm understanding correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, please. It's more like, do you have the right to end the life? Do you have the right to deny a fetus or an unborn baby from the future just for your personal, say, convenience, because it's an inconvenience for you and stuff like that? So those are all moral questions. Are you allowed to do this because of this? Or is it out of your hands? Should you not be allowed to do anything about it? That's why I think it's merely moral.
All right, thank you so much, Lewis. Appreciate your answer. Dom, please.
I think it's pretty different for everybody.
Correct.
For me, it's all three. Once I decided that I believe that life starts at conception and that abortion is murder, then that's where I guess the morality would come in. Religious, many scriptures. I mean, many. And for political, I think it's a very big political thing, especially right now, because there are politicians out there who are telling very big lies about abortion. There are politicians who are trying to have it completely banned. And when you have places like Planned Parenthood who are being continually funded, I believe it becomes a very big political issue then.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Is there anything else you guys want to add to this? I mean, in light of the election right now, do you think that your stance on abortion, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, is that going to play a role in you think how you choose? Or it's going to be a multiple of other things. Anyone can answer.
I think
For
more so.
me,
Oh, sorry. I'm
I thought
sorry.
that was going to be a problem. Sorry about that. So I think I heard Katie going first. Is that correct?
It doesn't matter. But for me, I take into consideration that there are other issues, but it is one of my main. Um,
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I agree with Katie. I feel like it plays a role, but it's not going to be the
The
only thing
definitive
that
choice.
really stops whoever I vote for.
Awesome. Awesome. No
For
problem.
me, I won't vote for somebody that's pro-choice.
Understood. Thank you so much.
I
Appreciate that.
take many things into consideration, but I can't do it.
Understood. Understood. Thank you. Appreciate
'cause,
that.
I also will not vote for someone that is pro-choice. I would rather not vote for someone.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that. Lewis, do you want to chime in or are you good?
I'm not. I'm not from the year, so I'm not really. I mean, from where I'm from, basically, yeah,
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. I
yeah.
guess
So I
we'll move
cannot
on
vote
to
for
the
someone.
next question. I believe Dom is up for this question first. Is that correct? I may have lost
I
place.
think
Did you
so.
answer
I
last on
think
the
so.
last one? All right, cool. So, Dom, for the next question, do you believe that men have a say on this issue?
Yes, absolutely. Um, I I mean, obviously the father is 50% of the child, so that's one reason. Most of abortionists are men, so I find it a little confusing when we are told that men can't have a say on this, but men are allowed to actually perform them. And like I said, I fully believe it's murder, so I just don't understand why men wouldn't have a say on murder. So
Okay.
yes, I definitely think they have a very big say, just as much as a woman.
All right. Thank you so much, Dom. Lewis, same question, please.
Hello, thank you. So, well, I mean, I'm a man, so of course I'm kind of biased, but I think
Mm,
we have a say, but I don't think we have the final say. I think we are allowed to express, for example, if I were to be the father or the future father of an unborn baby from a woman that wants an abortion, I think I am allowed to say, hey, but I wouldn't want you to do this. But in the end, that's all I can do. I can just express how I feel about it, but I can't tell her or make her do something that isn't that she doesn't want to do. I can't force her to have it. I can't force her to not have it. So that's as far as I go. Just saying what I think, and then I'm out.
right. And just to touch on what you were saying there, that's another thing that I noticed that when I ask about whether or not a man has an opinion in this, like I get the word dictate a lot. And I don't think that that's not what I'm asking. I'm not saying that a man can tell a woman what to do, just whether or not his opinion has value. And for the most part, a lot of pro-choice people say absolutely not. I don't want you guys to think that I'm saying that does a man have a final say in this decision. I'm just saying does he have any does his opinion have any value? All right. So show
Oh,
you
okay.
next. Oh no, you want to
So
continue?
yeah, I mean, after what you said, like you're saying that it's not like can he tell her what to do? It's just like if what he has to
Right.
say has any
Has value.
value. Oh well, then yeah, I think it's good to take it into consideration.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Show same question.
I agree. I do believe that men should have a say on the issue, but in the same sense, I feel like in the end, the woman has to go through the pregnancy and the struggles that come with it. And I feel like most people that are saying that men have no right to say something towards this are mostly women who believe that, like, the man doesn't have to feel the pain. But
Mhm.
I agree where men do have to feel the pain in the sense of it's their child that's not going to be in this world if they are aborted. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Katie, same question.
All right. Yes, I absolutely believe that men should have a say. I personally don't understand women who support abortion, but then they don't believe men should have a say in abortion because, by that logic, Roe versus Wade should be overturned as it was determined by a group of men. And in reference to men who wish to not parent, I would be perfectly fine with men signing away their rights, financial responsibilities in exchange that they can obtain custody at a later time.
All right. Awesome. Thank you guys for your answers. So, Katie, we're starting with you on the next question, which is how do you feel about people that have multiple abortions that may be abusing the system?
I feel really sorrowful for a woman who has multiple abortions, that she felt that that's the choice she had to make. Uh, I don't think you can. I found that most people I've spoken to about abortion have very little knowledge on fetal development, and I find that even there are a lot of euphemisms, especially provided by the pro-abortion community, to make abortion more emotionally palatable. I got pregnant right after graduating college. I didn't have stable employment, and my at the time boyfriend wanted me to have an abortion throughout the entire pregnancy. He tried to force me to get an abortion. So I got told on a nearly daily basis how selfish I wasn't for, not aborting, that we could have kids later. It wasn't the right time, so on and so forth. I absolutely felt like I had ruined my life when I got pregnant. I had a really deep sense of despair. I was embarrassed. I knew abortion was not for me because I consider abortion to be ending a human life. But I never better understood why some women are just driven to an abortion. It just kind of appears as a solution that can make you no longer pregnant, and it's like the baby never existed. But in reality, a new life has already been created, and biologically, a woman is already a mother. Abortion exploits the fears of women, and fear in the end is a liar. It robs women of what should be a great joy in their life. And I do believe that women who have abortion should be loved, they should be counseled, they should be supported, but it doesn't mean that abortion should be condoned. Mothers and children, preborn and born, have value.
All right, thank you so much, Katie. Show, same question.
I feel that if you have multiple abortions, that you should probably get a better education on contraceptives, because I feel like if you're having multiple abortions, you're using it as a contraceptive, which it's not. And it really makes me feel like that those women don't value life because they're constantly just killing their babies. And there's women out there who can't have babies and would love to have children, and they don't have that opportunity. And I just feel like if you're having multiple abortions, that you just need to reevaluate the way you're thinking, and just I don't agree with that.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Lewis.
Yes, thank you. So I am a bit overwhelmed by those people because I don't think they've had proper um sex education. If you have to resort to having multiple abortions, then I think it's time for you to do some research and try your best to not even have one in the first place. Because, I mean, from a purely medical standpoint, it takes a huge toll on your body. Getting pregnant and then ending it suddenly, it does take a big toll on the woman's body. So I think it's very unnecessary, and I think that it's better to try and do some research on your own, or ask a doctor what you can do to prevent them, because it's unhealthy.
All right, thank you so much, Lewis. Appreciate your answer. Dom.
Look, at the end of the day, we all know what the purpose of sex is. No matter what, it's not for the feeling. The purpose of sex is to create a life. So I agree with everyone with saying that people like that are definitely uneducated and are unaware of what is living inside them. They're unaware of what is literally a miracle growing inside of them, and they are unaware of what exactly is done to get rid of it. And I feel like if these women and everyone, if everyone were to see what these abortion procedures are and what actually happens to that child, I feel like a lot more people would be using protection.
Right. That's going to lead right into my very next question, which happens to be do you think people could be more sexually responsible? And we'll start off with you, Dom.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, the whole point of sex is to create life. At the end of the day, that's it. That's the whole point. So I feel like there's no excuses for the most part, other than I've seen some Planned Parenthood educational videos that were not educational, at all. So very inaccurate. So I feel like they may have seen, some false information. I mean, I think a big part of this, it comes down to they're not educated and they're not doing research. They're not looking. So Yes, yes, you could be a lot more sexually responsible. And at the end of the day, no matter what your feelings are on it, there is always adoption and foster care.
I appreciate your answer. Lewis?
Yes, thank you. So, I mean, as someone in the medical field, well, I'm still studying, but still, I do think everyone should be the most sexually responsible as possible to prevent unwanted pregnancies, unwanted STDs, and just in general to have the most safe sex life that you can have without having to worry about
Mhm.
the things you will normally want to. You will normally. Uh, get worried about. You know, the information is out there. You can ask anyone. You can go to a doctor's office and ask if you don't have the resources. For the internet, for example, on the internet, you just have to Google it. It's easy, but that shouldn't undermine either the information given to you directly by a medical professional, even if the information you see on the internet is accurate, sometimes something can get lost in translation. So, yes, be as the most sexually responsible that you can be, so that you can have a good life and a good sex life that you can enjoy without having to worry about things that could happen if you are not responsible.
All right, thank you so much, Lewis. Appreciate your answer. Show, same question. Do you think people could be more sexually responsible?
For sure. I feel like a lot of people just have sex for fun and don't think about the consequences of their actions. And I feel like it's really easy to just use protection to prevent any accidents, I guess is what you could call it. I wouldn't, but some people think of pregnancy as an accident. So if you use birth control or um, condoms or Plan B, which I still don't totally agree with Plan B, but if you educate yourself or have a sex ed class that you pay attention to and actually uh, take in everything, then I feel like you're more equipped to be sexually active.
All right, thank you so much. Katie?
Yes, thank you. I absolutely think that people can be more responsible when it comes to sexual activity. I hear a lot from the pro-abort side saying that consent to pregnancy is not, or consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy. But responsibility to procreate takes place long before having sex. Only 1% of abortions are due to rape and 0.05 due to incest. So in all other cases, two adults are willingly having sex, knowing that pregnancy is a potential outcome. And people who have sex need to stop being so surprised when they participate in the specific act that leads to procreation and they end up reproducing. If someone doesn't want to have a baby, precautions need to be taken ahead of time. Abortion is not an acceptable form of birth control.
All right, awesome. So all these questions tied in together, because I was like when I was part of the abortion debate group, right? What people who were saying that had a lot of I'm sorry, a lot of abortions. It says they have. It's back to that moral question, right? You know, do they feel that the baby is a a life? And I guess if they have that mindset that the baby isn't an actual life form or a viable human being or whatever you want to call it, they may have, they don't feel any guilt with having multiple abortions. They don't think there's anything wrong with it. And again, that all plays into whether they want to be sexually responsible. They probably believe that they can be as irresponsible as possible if in their head they remove that sense of, that the baby is not a person. All right, so to the very next question, we'll start with you, Katie. That question is: should a woman need a reason to abort?
I do not believe there is ever an acceptable reason for an elective abortion. I would like to clarify that there is a difference between an elective abortion and that of a spontaneous abortion, otherwise known as a miscarriage. The removal of fetal remains when a baby is stillborn, and women who are induced, it means having their baby early, knowing that their babies will not survive. It's disingenuous to compare elective abortions, which pro-lifers protest, to these tragic losses. And if you want to dive a little bit further, I feel that the reasons I find that pro-abortion people used to defend abortion are typically fetal defects, children that are in the foster care, rape and maternal deaths. So if I have a minute,
No,
can I
sure.
dwell?
No, go for it, please. Don't worry about it,
Okay.
please.
Perfect. So I have a 4-year-old little girl. In many ways, more than one, my daughter was a prime candidate for abortion. I got pregnant right after I graduated college. I did not have stable employment. My at the time boyfriend wanted me to have an abortion. Throughout the pregnancy, tried to convince me to have an abortion. I was on birth control. I did not find out I was pregnant until significantly farther along. I went in for my first ultrasound at a pregnancy care center. They estimated I was around 10 weeks. When my first ultrasound took place, it was discovered I was really at 19 weeks. I was still given the option for abortion. 19 weeks, still given the
Wow.
option for abortion. At this time, no fetal defects were, I was fine. I was healthy. They didn't know anything was wrong with my baby. Still given that option for abortion. So again, I had gone over, I really felt like I had ruined my life. When I got pregnant, I was super embarrassed. I never even had a detention in school growing up. It was just, this was not my character, but I knew that a life had already been created, and it was, I was responsible for that. And so anyway, then later on, it was found my daughter had congenital heart defects. So in another way, she would have been a prime candidate for an abortion, which congenital defects are, again, another reason I see a lot of people defending abortion. Towards the end of my pregnancy, my baby wasn't growing right. Doctors did extra monitoring, they did extra tests. They could not find out why. Their solution was not abortion. Their solution was to induce me.
Oh, wow.
To bring the baby, early. So she was 3 to 4 weeks early, depending on the doctor and their due date they gave to me. I saw multiple doctors. At 12 months old, my daughter did have open heart surgery. She'll have to see a cardiologist her entire life. This does not take away the value of her life because of her defects. But actually, the day before my daughter had her heart surgery, someone called, and there was a 5-year-old little girl who was going for her kindergarten screening. And it was discovered at her kindergarten screening that she had a heart defect so serious that very week she had to have open heart surgery.
Oh, man.
So if this little girl's parents had known about her heart defects prior to her birth, might have influenced their decision to keep or abort their daughter.
Wow.
And again, there are babies who will die outside the womb, and it's sad. Some view abortion as the best, most compassionate cases for these babies that have defects, but I do not understand how it is more loving to pay someone to, if it's later term, how abortion takes place, the child will literally be torn apart and sectioned out of the woman's body, or the baby can be given a heart attack and the woman induced the body intact so the parents have time with that child.
Wow.
I just don't know how it's not kinder to spend the last time that a child with defects has, who will not live, surrounded by love and taking their final breaths cradled in the arms of their parents over abortion. And it breaks my heart that anyone would think that the first is more compassionate than a live, birth, or just giving that child as much time as they can, surrounded by love. And my second thing is foster care, because foster care is often used as an example about why abortion should be allowed. Many children who are in foster care are there with the goal of reunification for their families. They are not able to be adopted. Actually, according to childwelfare.gov, September 30th, 2018, about half, 56% of children in foster care were there with the goal of reunification with their family or primary caregivers. Only 27% were there with the goal of adoption. And AmericanAdoptions.com says that there are 2.1 million families in the U.S. waiting to adopt, which comes out to about 36 families per one child waiting to be adopted.
Wow.
So if you actually look at it that way, there's tons of families wanting to take these children. I know we talked about rape briefly earlier. According to the Guttmacher Institute, which is a pro-abortion institute, only about 1% of abortions are due to rape, 0.05 because of incest. And I often see hypotheticals where people say become the most tragic examples become possible to justify all abortions, where they say, a child became pregnant as a result of rape. It's a horrific thought. But those people who will use abortion in the most rare, horrible cases to support abortion in all circumstances, and honestly, rapists love abortion. Abortion allows rapists and human traffickers to get rid of the evidence of their crimes and the cycle to continue. I would strongly suggest checking out Save the One, actually, because I know a lot of people say, abortion except in cases of rape. And Save the One's founder, Rebecca, I'm going to butcher her name, Kissling, was conceived in rape. So she now advocates for people like her who were conceived in rape, and that her life and those like her, their lives have value. There's also another Facebook page, and it's called Love Louder, Jeff and Jennifer Christie. And they have a son who was conceived in rape after Jennifer was brutally raped. And so they advocate for the rights of children conceived in that way. She actually has a quote about her son, and it goes, his favorite is a giving tree. He wants to go to China. He purrs when he wants to marry his kindergarten teacher. His hair always sticks up in the back. He was conceived in rape. One of these things doesn't matter. One of these things doesn't matter at all. It's using children who have fetal defects, who are in the system, who are conceived and raped to uphold abortion is promoting that these children are somehow less worthy to their right to life because of circumstances that are out of their control. And the last thing I want to touch on is maternal mortality rates, and specifically in the US. According to the CDC, there are approximately 700 women who will die annually from pregnancy and childbirth complications. Now, also according to the CDC, in 2018, there were 3,791,712 live births. That's not all pregnancy, it's just recorded live births. If we compare the two numbers, it's pretty obvious that pregnancy in itself is not a morality risk. And it's also important to know that up to 1 year after birth, a woman can be considered to have died due to maternal causes. And a lot of people think that it's just, pregnancy and delivery and unsafe abortion. So if a woman died in an abortion, it's also counted in maternal deaths. And again, to me, who will use maternal deaths to justify abortion are just insulting mothers who literally have given their all to bring their children into the world.
All right, thank you for your very passionate response. Appreciate it. Show the same question. Do you feel like a woman needs a reason to abort? And we may have lost show.
Okay, sorry, my mic wasn't working for a second. Sorry. Okay. So personally, since I feel like I wouldn't abort, I feel like you'd need a good reason to want to make that choice. But again, I feel like it's your choice to make. You'll have to live with the consequences of knowing that you are taking a life. But personally, if I was ever to get abortion, which I, again, am very against, I feel like it would have to have an extremely good reason behind it.
All right. Thank you so much for your response. Appreciate it. Lewis, same question. Should a woman need a reason to abort?
Okay, thank you. So, actually, first, I'd like to thank Katie for the very passionate answer as well. It was very pleasant thing to hear, and she clearly has done her research, so that's great. I love that. And now, as for myself, I am the kind of person who believes that any reason is a good reason for a woman to have an abortion. And so, for example, be it that perhaps you don't want to be pregnant right now, maybe you want to have a kid later, and that's a good reason. If you just don't feel like you're ready yet, that's a good reason. If you think you're not going to be able to provide what the baby will eventually deserve, if you don't think you can do that, I also think that's a good reason. So ultimately, because from my standpoint, the embryo, the fetus, isn't really conscious, sentient. It hasn't experienced anything yet, and it doesn't have the capacity to do so, and until later on. And I think that if any action should be taken on it at any point, it should be before it has had the capacity to feel, to be sentient, to experience anything at all. Therefore, since the fetus in itself isn't really at the point of the pregnancy before it's conscious, it's merely matter, atoms, molecules together at that point in time before sentient. So any changes in the arrangement of molecules and atoms and whatever you want to call it doesn't have any impact on its experience, because it hasn't experienced anything yet, and it it won't until later on. And if you decide to interrupt or terminate that process, then ultimately for the fetus, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It won't even know it happened. So therefore, if I think that's why the woman takes priority, because she is capable now of experiencing this, of sentience. So therefore, she whatever reason she has, even if it's a bad reason, I think it's a higher priority than the fetus itself taking the woman's body at that moment, because the fetus doesn't experience anything at all, and even a little bit of experience of sentience trumps that non-sentience. So that's why I think that any reason at all is valid for a woman to have an abortion, and that would be the end of my argument.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate your answer. I just want to come back to you for a moment, not because I disagree with your point of view. I just found it interesting that you started off the conversation believing that life begins at conception, but when it
Yes,
comes to a woman having a reason to abort, you're saying there's a difference between when life begins and sentience.
yes.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much, Lewis. Appreciate your answer.
Oh wait,
Uh,
hang on. Uh, can you repeat what you said to me? Because
oh,
I don't
sure,
know.
sure, sure. All right. One of the first questions we asked in the beginning of this thing was, when does life begin? If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to misquote you. You said you believe that life begins at conception. Am I accurate with that?
Well, I generally said that I don't think life begins; it just continues. But if we want to talk about a new, say, individual, the potential of a new individual, then it would be at conception.
Okay. All right. Again, thank you for your answer. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Dom, same question. Should a woman need a reason to abort?
In my opinion, there is no reason to abort at all. There is no reason that is valid. I don't think that the baby, the baby, the baby's experiences and feelings and consciousness, I don't think any of that takes away from the value of the baby's life. When a child is born and they're only 2 3 months old, I mean they're not going to remember anything, but you try to kill a 2 or 3 month old baby, and everybody agrees that that's horrible. When somebody is an adult and they are in a coma and they're surviving purely off of just machines, they can't feel anything, can't remember anything, they're not there. Uh, Everybody agrees that's wrong to kill them too. So I feel like there is absolutely no reason whatsoever that makes it okay to take a life and to kill a human. And if I could just read real quick,
Absolutely.
even though I believe the first woman touched up on this too. So recently, this came out from liveaction.org. And it says that it was a multiple choice question survey for women who were going in and having abortions at Planned Parenthood. And it said that 74% agreed that they were having an abortion because of the dramatic change to their life that they weren't ready for. 73% agreed that it is a financial situation, but they can afford it. 48% they don't want to be a single mom, or they are scared for their relationship if the father isn't going to stay around. And 38% stay is because they have already completed their childbearing and do not want any more kids. And as she said earlier, 1% is rape and 0.5% is incest. And in my opinion, none of those are a reason to take a life. And when you sit down and you actually speak with people who have survived abortion, and you see the scars that are left on them, or you see their missing arm, I cannot for the life of me find a reason that makes that okay. I just can't. I can't find any reason that makes it okay.
Okay, well, awesome. I'll just ask you one more question in reference to that. You say you don't see any reason. If there's a situation where the mother's life is in jeopardy, do you think that that's an okay situation to have an abortion?
Well, there are actually procedures that can be done to remove the baby and try to keep the baby alive for as long as possible. So
Ah,
it doesn't have the highest success rate, but I think that that's a lot better than just automatically deciding for that child whether they are going to live or not.
Would I
I
be able to touch
appreciate
on
that.
that?
I'm sorry.
Sure,
Would
sure.
I comment on that? So yes, as you had just said, babies as young as 21 weeks, that's about halfway through the pregnancy, have been able to survive, becoming younger and younger. It's incredible.
Yep.
And honestly, I think that if the mother is at risk, if you're far enough along that viability is possible, the solution at that point is to not abort. Because actually, what you induction, it only takes, it can take like 45 minutes. I think what it was about that time for C-section. Don't necessarily quote me on that. I have to look it up and research that a little bit more. But it can take 2 to 3 days at points for a later term abortion, which is then usually when things become more complicated for the woman. And again, both the CDC and the World Health Organization have said that most maternal deaths from abortion have been preventable. I think it's like 60% are preventable, and usually it's because of a lack of access to health care.
All right, awesome. Somebody in the chat section actually asked a really interesting question that it has to do with the question we're answering right now, and the question is, what if a young girl, say between the ages of 7 and 12 years old, was raped? Do you think she should have an abortion? That's a very interesting question.
I do not know.
Okay,
I again.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was asking if I could chime in again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anyone can answer. Yeah, the question was, what if a young girl, let's say age 7 to 12 years old, was raped?
Mhm.
Do you think she should have an abortion?
Um, I think both lives have value. I often again these hypotheticals of children becoming pregnant as a result of rape. Again, they're being used to cover all abortions, used to justify all abortions. This is very, very rare. Again, only 1% of abortions are due to rape, and I think it was 0.05 due to incest. It's horrible. It's awful. Both lives have value.
Right.
The
No.
girl might not be able to sustain that life, but I do think that both her life and the child that she's carrying are lives with value.
All right. Lewis, you want to chime in?
Yes. So, in this hypothetical, sorry, I do believe it's best for her to have abortion because, um, the body of a 7 to 12-year-old girl is in no condition to bear a child. The complications that arise from pregnancies at early age are huge and are disastrous. And even then, if the pregnancy carries on correctly with no issues, the younger the girl is, especially talking about uh, below legal age of adulthood, like range 16 and below, the earlier, the younger the girl is, the higher chance later on in life she has to develop uterine cancer from
Oh
that.
wow.
Yes, from that pregnancy. That's in you can see that in any book about female health. The younger the woman is, and the younger she gives birth, the more likely she is to have uterine cancer later on because the hormones, especially at an early age, the hormones pregnancy creates metabolizes in the body of the girl, and the changes in the uterine wall
Hmm.
and organs that it causes make it so that those cells become more sensitive and abnormal. So the cervix, the uterus of that girl is at very high risk of developing uterine cancer later on.
That's very interesting. I never knew about that. As a cancer survivor myself, that's very interesting. I know that there was a correlation between a woman at a young age, I guess prematurely having a baby and cancer. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Do any of you want to piggyback on his response to that? I thought that that's a piece of information that I was unaware of.
In my opinion, that's, as I said, there's no excuse.
Understood. That's your point. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I agree with, both lives are both valuable. Rape is obviously a horrible, disgusting thing, but so is murder.
All right. If no one else wants to touch on that, we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, actually, I want to mention something really quick.
Sure.
Um,
Please.
my answer stems from the again my what I think should be prioritized. From a fetus at an early age, early stage, and an actual living girl in this case. I think the girl gets more priority. That's why I didn't really talk much about the fetus and all that, because of course, I mean, I'm not a monster. I would be very happy if every pregnancy went well, and if every result of sex, for example, of conception, could make it to term and be healthy. But I think in these cases, since medicine and science are very arbitrary in the sense that um, nothing is always going to be 100% perfect or the case, then I prioritize the patient, the girl patient, and I look at this on the long term. She have not only her body is not equipped to have a baby yet, even if she ovulates at an early age, but also later on in her life, she is at very high risk of a deadly disease, and her overall her life is going to dramatically change for something she didn't ask for. She didn't ask to be sexually abused. So, in these instances, I think it's less trauma to terminate the pregnancy than to allow her to have it, and then just give her the very big toll that is having a pregnancy at an early age.
All right. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that your response. So I'm actually gonna skip the next question because I think after hearing your answer to whether or not you support whether on a reason to abort, I think I know the answer for all of you when I ask, do you think what do you think about sex selection abortion? Obviously, those of you who are against abortion don't agree with it, and the only one that's going to agree with it based on his previous answers was Lewis because he believes that any reason for abortion is a valid reason. So I think we're all clear on whether or not it's a good idea to have an abortion for whatever reason.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Excuse me. Is it difficult to find credible resources for pro-choice and pro-life? Katie, did you go first last? If that makes any sense?
Did I go first last? I do not honestly remember at this point.
You know what? No, let's start with you. Go right ahead, since we have you there anyway. Go ahead.
Sure.
So, is it difficult to find credible resources?
I don't think so at all. I think it's incredibly easy to find information on abortion online. I think that once we begin to examine fetal development, reasons why women have abortions and how abortions take place without euphemisms or without being willfully ignorant, abortion, again, is no longer acceptable just to be a, quote, decision between a woman and her doctor. Could I share actually a few fetal development facts?
Sure.
Okay, so I have some stuff, some information here that has been taken from sources such as Mayo Clinic, Stanford Children's Health, and What to Expect, which, fairly easy to find. So, at conception alone, we know that new DNA is created as a unique human life is begun. By the 4th week, all major organs, have begun to develop. Tiny buds where the arms and legs are emerging. The heart is now beginning to beat. The beginnings of eyes and ears are developing, and the neural tube has begun to form. By 8 weeks, arms and legs are visible. Fingers and toes are there, but they're still webbed and not quite distinguishable. The mouth is developing tooth buds, which are going to become the baby teeth, and the baby will have developed taste buds that are connected to his brain by about week 8. At this stage, the embryo is in constant motion. The mom can't feel the baby moving yet, and it's all, very early. There's, tons of stuff about fetal development out there, and a lot of people say that because most abortions take place early on, that, it doesn't matter. The baby, it does not have, the life did not have value. It's too early. Nothing's formed. I hear a lot of talk about tissue, clumps of cells, contents of the uterus, lots of euphemisms. And I think we really need to be honest. If you're going to support abortion, but know what you're supporting. And again, like by the end of the 13th week, the fetus is about the size of a lemon. It is about 3 inches long and weighs 1 ounce. So we're not talking about something that's not distinguishable. Even at 8 weeks, you can see in these developmental stages that we're talking about limbs and stuff. And if you do a little research into how abortions take place, you'll find I've seen some videos from Planned Parenthood workers who have been under oath. So it's not just someone, on the internet doing their little spiel about how they don't advocate abortion. Planned Parenthood workers under oath talking about how even in early abortions that they have to sometimes, reassemble these limbs to make sure they have the whole contents of the uterus out, so the woman will not get an infection or have other complications. So no, I don't think it's hard to find information out. I think a lot of people want to be willfully ignorant. It's it makes abortion more emotionally palatable when you don't know anything about fetal development, when you don't know how abortions take place. You can even from Planned Parenthood, I've gotten some of my information about how abortions take place from Planned Parenthood. Like the abortion pill is 2 different pills. The first will block progesterone from being absorbed in the womb, and progesterone is necessary for the pregnancy and for the baby to development. The blocking of the progesterone causes the uterine lining that's been building up for the pregnancy to break down. The second pill is taken up to 48 hours later, and it causes the contractions and the contents of the uterus to expel, which is similar to a miscarriage. I found all this stuff online. It's not hard. I just think people want to be willfully ignorant.
All right. Thank you so much, Katie. Appreciate that. Show also, do you think it's difficult to find credible resources?
I don't. I feel like with sex education and as a class in schools now and the internet, there's really no reason to not find a credible resource.
Okay. And I guess also just what would you guys consider credible?
I feel like if it's from like a medical standpoint, then it's more credible than just somebody saying, "Hey, this is how this works."
Okay. Lewis, same question.
Yes, thank you. So, after answering my question, I was wondering if it was okay if I also touch on some things that Katie said, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So, is it difficult to find credible sources? I don't think so, actually. And generally speaking, even in countries that the access to information is limited, well, actually, well, they're kind of, but if we're talking specifically about US, then no, it's actually not that difficult. You can at any time go to a doctor's office, and I think they're required to answer your questions. I don't know how it is over there, but so for example, if you were to walk down to a clinic, and I think you can ask, especially in Planned Parenthood, for example, all the things that you want to know about abortion, pregnancy in general, and also online there are websites from hospitals, for example, like Mayo Clinic, and others like that, like Johns Hopkins, I believe, where the access to information is very, I mean, it's very simplified, and that's actually the thing that I want to touch on for the general public. The information out there in those kind of websites are directed to the general public, and so they're very, very simplified, but they're still very effective. They give you the gist of what's happening. But now touching on what some things that Katie said, like the heartbeat being able to be detected at like 4 weeks, I think she said, or 6, and the brain waves and stuff, and how the I don't know how to say it in English, but the taste buds, the taste buds being connected to the brain by week 8. That is very simplified information, again, because it's for the general public. If one gets deeper into it and reads, for example, medical journals from doctors that use the proper terminology, the proper language of medicine, then you can see, for example, that the heartbeat that is detected at from 4 to 6 weeks is not really a heart, because the heart is not complete. It doesn't have the 4 chambers yet. It's contracting cells and neurons firing, and it creates an echo. And depending on the technology of the echograph, you can see the echo, and that's why it's generally said in those websites, for example, that the heartbeat can be heard or detected at 4 weeks. It's not really a heartbeat, but that's what it says. And the taste buds being connected to the brain. There is no brain yet at 8 weeks. As she said, it's the neural tube, and that's not a brain. It's a very primitive form of cluster of neurons over there. And while it is connected, there is a route. It's not functional. And if there are any neurons firing, they're erratically firing. It doesn't have an order. It doesn't have any specified instructions. It's a very, very underdeveloped thing. But nonetheless, for the general public, we word it as if, hey, since there are neurons connected from taste buds to the neural tube, we can just say that they are connected to the brain, even if there is no brain. So those sources are credible in the sense that they give you the information, the correct information, but they give it very simplified. In order to have the full picture, the actual picture, instead of a blurry thing, one has to go to the medical journals, which are, again, easily accessible if you are in an area where they are available, be it the internet, if you have internet, or if you're in a library. These generally, those articles are published online. So that's it. I think the language is very simplified. Nonetheless, it's still credible, but it's not the full picture yet.
I think that was very interesting. I didn't know that about as far as the terminologies and I guess how people would describe things. That's very very interesting because like
Yeah, I'm gonna
when
have to chime in on that too.
yeah, because when like I said, when someone's born, they told us we can hear the heartbeat at 6 weeks, and we did hear it, but I was not aware of the other terminology, the medical terminology, the more specific aspects that the heart is not developed like you say. It's just the pulses or whatever. It's not the actual heartbeat. That was pretty interesting. Thank you for
Yes,
that
the
piece of information.
contractions. They're contractions generally, but
Doesn't our heart
we
regulate?
call them heartbeats so that the people can understand it, like very simplified.
Katie, you were gonna say something?
Oh no, go ahead.
All right, go ahead, Dom.
Speaking out loud.
Okay, so to go a little bit more in depth and not simplify, even though there is not a so-called heart, it is a heartbeat. It is still a beat that is doing what a heart does. The 4 chambers come in, let me see here. Yeah, 7 weeks. 7 weeks is when the 4 chambers of the heart are made and fully developed. So, in my opinion, that's as good as the heart that I have.
Mm-hmm.
That's a heart. But so for the actual question at hand, I'm gonna have to disagree. I think it was very hard at first for me to find credible sources because we have politicians and we have the news out there telling just absolute insane lies, and we have huge organizations like Planned Parenthood who are teaching their educational classes and are lying, and we're being lied to by politicians that Planned Parenthood is doing all these other things, but they're not. They're not. The whole mammograms and everything, it's a lie. There was a undercover investigation done in, I believe it was 2009 and 2010, called the Rosa Kunda Project, and they went into 3 different Planned Parenthood locations undercover, and they were asking various questions. And when you hear the information that these people give, I mean, it's disgusting, and it goes against things that I was taught in 6th grade, you know. So at first, yes, it was very difficult for me to find a credible source, and for me personally, I'm not exactly sure what I consider a credible source. Honestly, it comes from the individual person. So the biggest pro-life organization that I follow is called Live Action, and that was created by a woman named Lila Rose when she was 15 years old. There is a lot that you can read and watch about her personally, so you can kind of get to know her personally. And she works side by side with a ex-abortionist who performed over 1,200 abortions, and he is now pro-life. And he makes educational videos on their website, liveaction.org. And that was, for me, the first one that I found that I consider credible, because I kind of was able to get to know her a bit, and that was how I was able to come in contact with people who actually, survived abortions, had abortions, performed abortions. So for me, I have a very limited group of websites, Facebook pages, whatever that I trust. For me, yes, it's difficult for me to find a credible source.
All right, yeah, that was my thing, right? When it comes to credible sources, like you're specifically looking at, since you are pro-life, you're specifically looking for people who are gonna give you information that supports your ideology, correct?
No,
No, no. All
May
right,
I have
no.
Yeah.
sure, Katie.
Yeah, I don't. I look at the Guttmacher Institute. They are known to support abortion. I look at Planned Parenthood. I look all over to form my opinion and just to try to get, a little bit from both sides and obtain information. I've literally seen abortions take place from videos online to help. I've formed my opinion with a lot of research. I don't necessarily just look at people who support my side.
All right, appreciate that. And that was my thing. Like as far as like credible resources, like Dom was saying, there are some places like Planned Parenthood who are supported by a specific political group, and I guess that could like sort of influence their viewpoint. So that's why when I say credible, I mean it's something that isn't attached to
No bias.
exactly. Thank you. A source that isn't biased at all. Like that's something that I would consider credible, a credible resource. That's something that's 100% unbiased and just giving you the facts. So that's why I was curious. It's like the. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, then I might reevaluate my answer a little bit and say that if we're going to go for unbiased sources, I probably wouldn't trust much of anything that's not like an epidemiology textbook.
Right. And the reason I asked that is because, like I said, the internet is just so saturated with information. It's hard to sift through a lot of that. It's a lot. It's you know the internet. It's a lot of information. So it's always hard to find on any subject. It's very difficult to find credible sources because you have different agendas on each side, supported by either a politician or supported by a company that might support a different ideology. So you have to push those ideals and stuff like that. So for me, it's still very difficult to sift through a lot of that stuff. But you guys have given me some great information. Does anyone else want to piggyback on that?
Yeah, just very quickly. What
Sure.
I do when I want to learn some information about it is, well, I mean, I have access to some medical books, so that first. But second, when I want to look for something online, there's this option in Google called Google Scholar, which it only brings up results from papers, journals, scientific papers, and all that. So you can type in, if anyone wants to try it later, you can type in the topic you want to look for in Google Scholar, and then it will throw you a bunch of papers, and it gives you when they were published, by who they were published, and they are proper journals. And at the very end of each one, if there is a conflict of interest, they are required to put it at the very end. So at the very end, you can say, for example, if there's a section called conflict of interest, and it says this person is associated with this enterprise, this company, this organization. And generally, if it doesn't have that, then it's because it's independent. It's an independent group of people that made the research. And so that's what I use generally when I research.
That's very
things
awesome.
about
I was unaware
this
of
kind
Google
things.
Scholars.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's been a thing for a while. But when I have to do my research for my homework, for example, that's where I go to get the information if I don't find it in my book.
I love the component that you said that if people can research the information, if there's a conflict of interest, you can interject your that information into. That's awesome. Were any of you guys aware of Google Scholars?
I was not.
I personally don't use Google for my research.
All right, appreciate that. Understood. And I guess for the final question is, what is this? Hold on one second. All right. Should the government be involved in making abortion legal or illegal? We'll start with Dom.
So part of the reason that I switched over to libertarian is because I strongly agree with the as little government as possible, but I'm also clear-minded and know that the government needs to step in and say, hey, killing your kids is not okay. You know, when it comes down to it, it's not the woman that's being killed. It's not the woman that's being ripped apart. It's not the woman that's being burned. So I feel like it's, you know, it's murder to me. So the question like this is, to me, is like, obviously, yeah, like, because, you know, I think it's murder. So I understand how people can say that that would be overstepping or something, or you know, that's controlling a woman's body. But at the end of the day, that's not her body, and the government has every right to make sure that a person doesn't get murdered. And the 14th Amendment makes that very clear. So, in my opinion, yes, the government absolutely has every right to make it legal or not. And in my opinion, it is absolutely insane to me that it even is legal. It's just insane to me that this can even be a question to ask whether this should be made legal or not. I mean, it blows me away. It blows me away.
All right, thank you so much for your answer, Dom. Lewis, same question. Should the government be involved in making abortion legal or illegal?
Yes, thank you. So, I mean, practically speaking, the government is the one that makes things legal or illegal, and so it's kind of a confusing question for me. But I think, generally speaking, if you should be involved at all, like from a discussion standpoint, I don't think so. I think it's up to the people to determine whether it should be legal or illegal, and the government should probably just comply to what they say, because this discussion, as I view it, is a discussion about whether a woman has control of her body,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and I don't think that should be regulated by a group of people that isn't that woman, that those women in the general population, because um, mostly the people that make the laws are a very select group of people with a select group of group of ideas, and if those people agree in something, well, it's just them. They don't. There's no input from the people
Right.
that they're
That,
ruling
that that
over.
was my question. Yeah, that's basically why I'm asking. You think it should just be a medical procedure that's available to you, or it's something that should be governed by by political policy or legislation?
No, no, I fully believe you should be entirely from the people, for the people, without any higher thing controlling it other than just allowing it to be whatever the people say.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Show.
I don't believe the government should be involved at all because they weren't involved in the making of the child in the first place. And I believe that it is between the mother and the father to, in all, decide whether they believe the baby should be brought into this world. Um, I also want to touch on what Dom said about it's the baby that's being ripped apart, not the woman. After having a child, I do believe the woman is ripped apart, and that we feel an intense amount of pain and go through quite a lot in making the decision of having another or not. I think that it is definitely the woman's choice, and so the government should not be involved at all in deciding if the woman should go through the pain of bringing in a child, because it is a huge responsibility.
Right, but just to reiterate, this is not a debate. Dom is entitled to his opinion, just like you're entitled to yours. So I don't want it to make it seem
Yeah,
like
no,
it's a
I
debate
just,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
I mean, at the end of the day, I understand, you know, that women go through pain and everything, but it's not your leg being ripped off, and it's not your head being crushed. So I feel like that might hurt a little bit more.
All right, thank you guys so much. Katie.
All right. Yes. I do think that the government should be involved. I mean, the government is involved in our lives from being, we have to wear seatbelts when we're driving. Children are required to go to school. You cannot cause another person bodily harm. The government tells us in so many ways what we can and cannot do with our bodies. And the U.S. government specifically has declared that life is an unalienable right, and I believe that abortion is a human rights issue when our youngest, most vulnerable humans are being denied their rights to life. According to the Guttmacher Institute, 43 states prohibit abortions after some after some stage in pregnancy or for various reasons. Some use fetal, if they're viable as a cutoff. Others use third trimester, certain weeks after conception. And there have been 61 million abortions, over 61 million abortions in the U.S. since 1973, when abortion was legalized. And bottom line is a fetus a human life. If the position is that the preborn are not human babies, it doesn't matter why the life is terminated or at what gestational age. If a fetus is a life with value, then their individual life, their right to life, cannot be trumped with the thought that the pregnancy or the child is not convenient, or by emotionally based arguments that the life does not have value, prior to viability. From the pro-life standpoint, is that a human in utero is a life with value, which is why there are moral implications to ending pregnancy via abortion. Gestational age has no merit on whether by definition a human life is a value, and using dependency and developmental state to justify abortion is ultimately just trying to make ending a human life more emotionally palatable. Failure to recognize humanity is a lesson that history is doomed to repeat over and over, and we still have not learned. Abortion is a human rights issue, and when our youngest and most vulnerable are disposable, it's inevitable that those who are elderly and disabled are next to see humanity stripped. There are already countries who are trying to do away with certain, like Down syndrome, virtually been eradicated in some countries via abortion. That's eugenics. That's the disabled being targeted. Our value as individuals and as humans begins from the moment of our existence. It's not determined by our age, our gender, our location, our race, or our convenience. And those who are in favor of abortion are promoting that our worth is determined by others and it's not intrinsic. And abortion is placing our value as individuals in the morals of others. Either we have value from the moment of our existence or we don't. And as I believe that abortion is a human rights violation, I absolutely believe the government has the right to say that there are regulations on this.
All right, man. Thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun. It was very, very educational. I learned a lot from all of you guys. I learned a lot from Dom, Lewis, Show, and Katie. You guys really, really brought a lot to the table. You guys did your homework. You guys came prepared, and you guys really enlightened me on a lot of different aspects. And I hope that the people watching were able to see that, even though we may disagree on certain things, we can definitely have the conversation, man. And that's what this platform is all about: being able to talk to each other and learn from one another, and potentially be inspired, man. And I want to thank you guys so much for participating in the first of many future discussions that I'm going to be having on this channel. And you guys are the the beginning of this whole thing. I log on every day at 6 o'clock, just talk with my group of people in various subjects. But I want to try to do I'll take a discussion, a bigger topic for like my Sunday discussions for these things, where I get people involved and we'll talk about it from different perspectives. So again, I want to thank you guys so much. I mean, thank you for sharing the portion of your evening with me. I really, really appreciate it. And with that said, I mean, the comment section didn't go crazy like I thought it would, which is awesome. Nobody went crazy with emotions and stuff like that. Granted, we didn't have such a large audience, but hopefully, as the platform grows, we'll get more people involved, and we'll take it from there. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope to see you guys again soon.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us, and thank you for the comment section as well, for your comments.
No problem, man. You guys take care and have a great evening.
You too.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
You as well. Thank you.